Welcome to another episode of the Wood Couture podcast. We are live at Brand Creative Office here in Dubai, and we are here with the one and only Carla Conte. Welcome to the show, Carla.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited, to find an interview.
So
A fellow Italian Canadian, even put the red one, to sympathize. And for those friends that do not know, Carla is a retail and environmental branding specialist, with particular experience in designing for the retail industry. Above all, since 2013, she's been on the top power list from commercial interior design. Not only a successful entrepreneur, but she's also an award-winning entrepreneur. And we are delighted to have it. And my first question is very simple. Where is Carla from? Where you all started?
So I was born in Canada, in Toronto, Canada. My parents are both Italian, as you mentioned. They were both born and raised in Italy. My whole family is Italian, so there's no other kind of a culture in the background there. But I was raised in Canada very much as an Italian. So if anybody knows North American immigrants, if you end up in America, in the US, you kind of end up in a melting pot and you become an American. But in Canada, it's not really the way, so an Italian can stay an Italian and still not be a racist. A Greek can be a Greek and still not be racist. It's very interesting how there's pockets and neighborhoods that develop, but we still embrace each other's cultures. And we're still all identifiable. So as a family, we were very much raised to know the culture, the food, the language. It was something very much infused into my upbringing. So I do actually feel very Italian. And funnily enough, here in Dubai, people always want to ask me, because when you say you're Canadian, there's always that little bit of, but where are you from? So they always ask me, and because I guess the last name as well with Conte, it's definitely an Italian last name. So I do actually encounter a lot of Italians here who are very proud of the fact that I represent them, even though I am Canadian. So it's an interesting, I love my background, and it's an interesting background to have.
At what point in time during your journey did you realize that you want to go into design? But because I read everywhere that medicine would have been your directions.
Absolutely.
What made you change?
So I was really academic in school. I wasn't the cool girl because back then being an artist was kind of not the cool thing to be. So it was, I always loved art, and I always had practiced art and did very well in visual arts, but I excelled at math and science. So I really did have this, in this thing in the background that I was going to become a dermatologist. My parents are both entrepreneurs. My dad is in the beauty industry. And one of my mother's best friends is actually a dermatologist. And I went to work for her as my first job as a receptionist. And I loved what she was doing because she was creating her own products. And she was super smart and very beautiful, and I just thought, this woman has it made. And she's a doctor to top it all off. I'm like, that's it, I'm going to be a dermatologist. I'm going to go to University of Toronto, become a doctor, specialize in dermatology. And in my last year of high school, my visual arts teacher came to me and he was like, listen, we have a global internship program that you can apply to, and it put students in high school in the very top positions in some of the, for example, in science, we had somebody who went to intern for Bombardier, another person interned for NASA. So they had a placement at an award-winning interior design firm in Toronto called IDG. I knew nothing about interior design. Again, I'm an artist, so I was doing visual arts and interior design. I had taken some drafting courses, but and I understood I didn't want to be an architect for sure. I also thought that was just not part of what I wanted to do. I definitely respect architects and I love the craft, but I gave this a go. I gave it a chance. I finished high school 6 months early, so I had nothing to lose anyways. And I went, and the president of the company let me sit beside him for 3 days I mean, this is an award-winning major guy. Like, he's actually English and immigrated from England to Canada in the 70s. A big deal. Here I am, 17 years old, no idea who I'm sitting beside. And I watched him sketch at the drafting table for 3 days, and he just made me sit there. He made me sit there, and even in private conversations with employees, as they were coming in to talk to him about projects, about things that were happening, he just wanted me to understand like what his life was. I didn't realize how lucky I was. I did feel really touched that he was doing that with me, but I didn't realize how lucky I really was until I really got into it a few months later and just thought, this guy's a big deal, you know? I did that 6 months with them. I worked on, you know, movie cinemas. I worked on department stores, supermarkets in Latin America, and I just thought, you know what, I actually think I could do this, because it's not art. It's not just art. And I think in the back of my head, I always had my parents going, you can't make money from art. You know, like, you're gonna have to do something else. And you can't compare doing anything in art to being a doctor, you know? So, but I loved the scientific side of this. I love the strategic side of things as well. So at IDG, what they were doing was the brand development. And I love that. I actually thought it brought a whole other dimension to it, you know, really sitting at a boardroom table and not just being 100% opinionated on trends. It's more about, you know, how will my design bring value to someone's business? Right. And I thought I think that's fantastic. So I really was a sponge. And for 4 years, I ended up applying to Ryerson University for interior design. I applied to York University for graphic design, and I applied to University of Toronto for medicine. And I got into all three, and I had the worst decision to make that summer. And I actually decided to do interior design, and here I am. And I never regretted it. I actually never have regretted it. But I really felt like I was very lucky because I had that internship there for me the whole time in university. So every time I had a couple of hours in a day, because their office was located close to my university, I would go to their office and help them. I was rolling drawings in the, you know, I'm of a certain age. I won't expose what age it is, but we were doing a lot of hand drawing and drafting still back then. So I was rolling drawings in the basement and photocopying things for mood boards, and there was nothing digital at the time. You know, I would still get memos from the secretary on my desk, you know, and a fax, you know, between the company and the job site. So really old school, you know. And I actually had it, I think I'm quite lucky because my age allowed me to see also the transformation between hand-drawn things and that old school way of things and digital. So in my last year of university, it was like 2 of us to a machine learning 3D Max. Not even enough computers for everybody to go around, imagine. But I was able to be exposed to that side of things. Of course, AutoCAD, I learned it all through university, but it's this nice bridge between old school and that old school way of thinking and doing everything by hand and actually treating interior design as a craft and this digital world that we're in today. So I really feel super lucky. I really feel super lucky about it.
You mentioned IDG, and in one of your recent interviews, you name Ronald Harris like your mentor.
That's him.
Take me through the best advice Ronald gave you and the quality he had that you see him with. That was my mentor.
I'll never forget, it was the first time I was making a foam model out of white foam board. And the area that I was using was a complete mess. I was like, you know, cutting up little things, trying to create this architectural model out of foam board. And he walks by and I started scrambling. I wanted everything to look clean and neat. I started cleaning everything up and he stopped. Here's this, like, you know, the president of the company, award-winning guy, and he started cleaning up with me. And I was mortified. I looked at him, I'm like, no, don't worry, I promise you, I will clean this whole thing up. You won't even know I was here. And he looked at me and he was like, I am not above cleaning. I am not above any task in this studio. If I can take out the garbage, anybody can take out the garbage. And he's like, and it's a valuable task. So, I mean, he stunned me with that. I was really impressed with the fact that he was so humble, and it stayed with me forever. I'm the same way in my own office. If somebody needs help doing something, cleaning something up, whatever it is, the smallest task, like I feel like that, keeping your head on tight in this industry is super important, because I do think it's very ego-driven. The glamour side of things can sometimes make people become not the best people, and so you can kind of lose yourself sometimes. And especially here in Dubai, in the Middle East, there's a stardom attached to design and architects and interior designers. And I really felt like what Ronald instilled in me was to always remain human. He also ran like a prayer group. So he was Protestant, and he used to run after work, a prayer group, and it was very simple. He actually invited anybody. It wasn't that it was religious in particular to his religion, but it was more of like a meditation thing. And I just thought, like, wow, this guy, I mean, imagine back then, he's also taking care of people's mental health. That's beautiful, like nobody. I've met other people, I've met other owners of companies that really, I mean, it's up to you. If something's wrong up here, it's up to you to go and fix it. But he was really of the mindset that like we could talk things out, and we can pray things out or meditate things out together as a group, and that would make us so much stronger. And so I attended a few of those things, and it's true, like the day after, if you went to one of these sessions, the day after you looked at each other at the lunchroom, like, I don't feel like there's this barrier now that you're some other kind of a person. When we create together, if you have any kind of a barrier, if you have any kind of an ego or any kind of an attitude problem, I really do think that it harbors your ability to be an amazing creative. I really do feel like you have to have that, if you believe in these things, like an open heart chakra, to be able to create the best that you can create, that when there's a closure there, in any capacity, you're going to have a blockage. And I think that even people that use your spaces will even understand that you're that kind of person. So I do feel that. I feel like there's energy infused into projects that stems all the way back to the designers. And if you've got a studio full of people who are depressed, overworked, tired, or full of ego and attitude, I think it shows in the work. I really do.
It's amazing how you describe Ronald as a very humble person, the one that will clean the garbage, who is the president, and very much mirror, I think, who you are, right? Because in all your interviews, you kind of give two special moments of your life, and one being saying, sitting in my mother's kitchen watching the snow falling down is the best feeling in the world.
Yeah.
Describe that feeling. I'm curious.
It's like it's quiet. If you've ever been in a place where it snows, like there's a quiet when it snows that like it's so still, but there's movement. Everything in this world, whenever something moves, there's a noise attached to it, except for snow. Like even rain makes a noise. But when snow falls, it's so gentle, it's so smooth, like soothing. And I can even remember being, in school or having a deadline or whatever it was. If it was snowing, my mother would always call me, Carla, come upstairs, it's snowing. And she'd have a coffee or an espresso or something, waiting with by a windowsill with her, and we'd just watch the snowfall. It's so calming. I think that quietness and being able to quiet your mind is really important.
The second moment you described, one was with your mother, but I love this because for people that do not know, you work with Fortune 500 companies, the biggest company in the world. You traveled everywhere. From America to Asia, your favorite place, Morocco, here in the Middle East, and then. But say the most gratifying time of my life is building housing in Enketebe village in Ghana. I don't know what is the reference.
Yes.
So take me through. How does it feel to do something for others to that extent?
So in 2006, it was actually my first year in Dubai. And it was 8 months into me being here in Dubai, so my company. So the company actually, IDG, was purchased by Watt International. So it was like, we got swallowed up by a much bigger company, and Watt is the one who has all these Fortune 500 clients, such as Coca-Cola and McDonald's and all of these amazing people and corporations to work with. So I had come to Dubai for Dubai Festival City with that company, spent about 8 months into it, and one of my colleagues at Watt in Toronto called me up and he's like, listen, my brother is a high school teacher in Ghana, and he's looking for chaperones for his high school class to accompany him in a village called Nkwanta Kese in Ghana, in Accra.
That's the right name.
Yes, Nkwanta Kese.
Kese.
I'll never forget it. And we're going to build a couple of houses. We're going to raise enough money to purchase all of the material for these homes. They're like mud huts, essentially. And we're going to build them. So we're not only just going to purchase the materials, but we're going to actually physically make the clay bricks, dry them in the sun, and then use those bricks to make the houses, and then craft the aluminium roofs, depending on where you're from. And I was like, yeah, count me in. I'm doing it. I want to do this. I actually had felt at that time that I was being a little bit too spoiled here in Dubai. Dubai was really a shadow of itself in 2006. So all the things that we all know about Dubai did not exist. Like, they really didn't. But I already could feel like that this was a glamorous world that really wasn't so much what I was used to back home. I loved it and appreciated it. Who doesn't love a manicure every 2 weeks? But at the same time, I realized I was very conscious of the fact that this isn't real. And I thought that being somewhere like that, I knew I was going to be sleeping in the mud. I knew I was going to be, cooking meals over fires. I knew that I could get really sick from the water, and I had to take all kinds of medications in order to do this properly. I was there for a whole month. But I was like, I need to do it for me, for the soul a little bit. So I headed off for Ghana. It was quite an experience. It really opened my eyes to true poverty. As a Canadian, I had never experienced anything like that. You have council housing and things like that in your own country. But I mean, I'm talking about true poverty. There was one teenage boy in the village that was walking around with a Walkman with no batteries in it, but his head was bouncing up and down as if he was listening to music. And I said to him, I'm like, there's no batteries. I was mouthing to him, I'm like, no batteries? And he goes, I don't need them. So again, I'm sitting there going, wow, this person is so much more developed here than I could ever be, just because he's got it a little bit harder than a lot harder than I do. And has to struggle. But I mean, the people had so much soul. Every night after we would, make clay bricks and do all these things, they would cook for us, they would make a bonfire, they would dance for us as well. It seriously was the best experience. The whole thing was done under Habitat for Humanity. So I'm not sure if you know that organization, but they build houses all over the world, even in Canada. So right. It's not just restricted to third world countries, so it's everywhere essentially, and it was fascinating. I would do it all over again.
From that experience, how have you changed as a person? What have you done differently before that experience?
I think for sure I am very mindful of my surroundings. Especially being an interior designer, I really do appreciate every, accommodation that we have within our homes and within our interiors and things like that. I'm very appreciative of how much we have in terms of even just material wealth. But also, I do think that I came back and I was a lot kinder. I don't think I was ever not kind, but I just was far kinder, or just more conscious of that other people could be going through something and I have no idea what it is that they could be going through. So yeah, it opened my eyes to a whole other dimension of poverty, and of this balance, of this scale or imbalance actually that exists in this world. So yeah, I think as a person, I also just appreciate the fact that yeah, people are. We're very lucky that geographically we were born in the places that we were born. You know, I can't help the fact that I was born in Canada. It's a privilege, a huge privilege. It's not my fault. I'm glad that I was. But I mean, along with that comes a passport and rights and human rights and privileges that, wow, am I lucky? You know, and when you experience true poverty and you go to a country like Ghana and not all of Ghana is total poverty, but into those small villages, and you just think, it really, like, I can look at someone and go, wow, I was born in Canada. It was totally by accident or geographically, because my two parents met there, and that's where I happened to be born. And you are so unlucky because your two parents met where they were born and you ended up being there. But we're all from this same source, you know, we're all human beings. And I do think it's just this like soul lottery that some people win, you know, and end up geographically in a great place, and they don't have all of these other parameters and restrictions placed on them. Like I do feel really lucky, I do.
You know, it's incredible listening to you, and you elevated to another dimension, a different level of intelligence, and you know, listening from the story and what you draw from experiences, and in fact, what caught my eyes reading narratives about you, it was that you say the two biggest source of inspiration is called cultural studies and fashion. Very interesting. Take me through the two, cultural studies.
I mean, I'm fascinated. Again, being Canadian and being really open to other people's cultures, especially when I ended up in university, you know, that's the biggest culture shock because my hometown was 95% Italian. So until I was 17 years old, the shops and the shopkeepers spoke Italian, and like in school we took Italian studies. So like if you grow up in a Greek neighborhood in Canada, you'll take Greek lessons. If you're Chinese, you'll take Mandarin or Cantonese. If you're Italian, you end up doing Italian alongside French. So when I got to university, like my mind was blown completely because I just met all of these other people. I had Indian friends, Pakistani friends, Chinese friends, people who were coming in from Hong Kong to study at my university. And it was amazing. I just couldn't, but like even just at the lunch hour, I would smell spices I've never smelled in my life. I mean, my parents would never order Indian food. That was just not because they didn't like it, but that's Italians eat Italian food. That's what you eat, right? So you stick to like what you know, and so like being opened up to this whole other world, and also artistically seeing their abilities come into play, and actually how their cultural backgrounds influence their designs. Like in school, I was just taken aback by this. And being downtown Toronto for the first time and living there and being there, again, my eyes were open to everybody else's experiences. And so I was invited to people's weddings, I was invited to birthday parties, and I really just started to understand how culture influences people's designers' psychological choices for color or texture or pattern or shape, or even how they curate a volume of space. I feel like our cultures, how we've been brought up, have a big play on that, you know, and how we actually mold our designs. So, and I take inspiration from other people, like as an observer, but I think I have a very specific, let's say maybe Italo-Canadese way of doing things, you know? Mm-hmm. And I feel like I can see that in my friends, in my colleagues too. So, I mean, when it comes to culture, for sure. And when it comes to fashion, I mean, I've always been, as I said, my father was in the beauty business. My mother was a makeup artist even in the 70s. And my father owned a beauty business since he was 17 years old. He literally recently retired when he was 17, just this year. And so he used to do, in the 80s, he used to go and do hair and makeup at fashion shows in New York and Montreal. And I would marvel at this whole other side of, like, you know, again, luxury. So it's funny because I talk about these, you know, these experiences about going to these countries with poverty, but I did always have an interest in understanding how how things were very imbalanced in this world. You have luxury, you have fashion, luxury, makeup, all these amazing things on one side, and then you have, you know, people who don't even own maybe one lipstick. But I love fashion. The reason why I love fashion is I do feel like with fashion, it's one of those things that you can absolutely change yourself with just a few things and then change back. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I don't think that actually using makeup and, you know, costume and things like that to become something else for a little bit, or someone else for a little bit of time, is a bad thing. I think that through doing things like that, and exploring fashion and exploring yourself that way, you have to tap into these personalities in order to be able to create inspiring designs. I feel that. Like, I feel like even with my own team here, like, we put on different hats every day. We don't have actually one specific type of project. Even in retail, I could be speaking to a supermarket one day and a high-end fashion brand the next, and a skincare brand the next, and, you know, who knows what else. So even in one sector, you know, the hats that I have to wear when I'm becoming that customer or that user is totally different. So I feel like fashion is one of those things that helps us, you know, be someone else for a little bit.
It's fascinating that really you know, it's interesting that you started talking about your inspiration, saying I'm Canadian, and I have to acknowledge that Canada embraced unity in diversity, big. I mean, and so I can see the Canadian in you. You know, unity in diversity. Really, you know, you don't see colors, you don't see nationality, you see human beings. Absolutely. And it's brilliant. But what caught my eyes in the history of Carla, you know, reading all what I read in the press, you know, because it's the first time I meet you, and is that by the age of 30, you are creative director, you reach leadership. But there is one topic that is at the heart of everybody, including myself. In my organization, more than 73% are female. And you say, but I was underpaid compared to my male peers.
Yeah.
Why is it that the design industry and a lot of nations, you know, don't address the gender equality topic? What's your view from a Canadian point of view?
Oh, it's so interesting because obviously I worked for a Canadian company when I was 30. I was still with them. And actually, they're amazing. They are an amazing company, but that gender inequality still existed. When I was 30, it was, you know, what year was it? It was still like 2010. And so I do feel like, I think very specifically when it comes to the type of clients you have, and especially with that specific organization, I mean, at the boardroom table, you would really be met with a lot of male dominance, especially in retail. So I feel like some of the choices in and around making certain people senior or not, we're also taking into account these really difficult decisions of what was the best, you know, move for the company. So I can actually understand that. I can play that game. You know, I can understand as a player in the game also that we have to play towards, you know, what clients' expectations are, or comfort. You know, it's retail can be a very boys' club oriented world. Okay, and especially in North America, it definitely was. And even as a Canadian, I experienced it. So I don't know. I think that particular company that I work for, though, did make me creative director at a very young age. So I do commend them for doing that. In terms of pay scale, though, it was very known that that was a very different thing. And again, I still had to feel like I was lucky because I knew how much my female friends were making in the design industry. I was at the top of my game. So I almost felt like I could never complain. And I never did. I always felt like I was so grateful for the opportunity and for the money and for everything. But I mean, I could have been at a totally different level had I been born a man, for sure.
But is the design industry doing enough to address the issue and push females into the industry, raise them, showcasing the natural given talent of a woman?
You know, I actually feel like here in the UAE, we have such an ability to change things because of the support around being entrepreneurial. So this country made it really easy for me as a woman to open a company. I have never, ever felt like I couldn't open this company. Nobody ever put any restrictions on me. It's self-financed. All I had to do was go down, get a license, open my own company. And when you have female-owned companies, I think this whole thing about gender just naturally it goes away. I have never hired based on someone's gender. I can't. Like, actually, the first 4 or 5 years of the company, I felt like Blondie. I was like the vocalist at the front with like all guys behind me, seriously. So I literally had all guys, and it wasn't because I didn't want to hire a woman. Of course I want to hire a woman, but I always just hired for the best for the job. Isn't that what you should be doing? And if you look at me now 10 years later, here we are, literally we just turned 10, and I'm very female. Like we are heavily female in this office today. Again, not because I chose it that way. Whenever openings and positions have become available, we interview, and the best person for the job gets the job. It's so simple. So, and I do feel though, when I look at some of the other female-led businesses in the UAE, that for sure you can see in those female-run businesses that there is, there's more of a female, let's say dominance, yes, in the company. And I don't know, I really don't think that those other, my counterparts are actually not choosing specifically females. It's just the best person for the job.
Right. Interesting, because the people that inspired you, the top 5 designers, and I wrote them down because I'm very curious about 2 of them. You have Yves Saint Laurent, Jabo Puschenberg, obviously they are a couple, Santiago Calatrava, Nate Berkins, and Rim Koolhaas. But no women.
Yeah.
So what these people have in common that you're so attracted by these 5 top designers?
Again, I don't think I ever saw, it's funny, I even didn't realize it. I think I just don't have that kind of a lens over my eyes, like I don't see color, I don't see gender, it's just not that. I've never noticed that those are my idols that all happen to be men, but I feel like some of them do have female energy.
Yes.
And when I listen to their interviews, like maybe that's where it comes from. Like I can look at somebody and very easily identify, even if you are on paper a male, that you could be more balanced as a female inside, like a female energy. So I think some of those people, if I were to, if you look at Yves Saint Laurent or Jabo Puschenberg as a couple, even them. Canadians, and
same university.
And same university. Oh my
Top.
God, I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud to be where they're from as well. But they do bring a feminine energy to their projects, absolutely. So so I do kind of feel like there is female representation in them.
You made an interesting statement. I'm moving on from Carla, the human beings, and stay with Carla as a human being, but talking about design. You made an interesting statement in Dex Dubai this year, and you advocate for design to start with education rather than aesthetics and enhance the human experience. Love that. Expand on that. I want to know more, please.
Well, I think that in school, if you come at things from a psychological point of view and you explain to students, design students, that they're designing for their mother, their father, their grandparents, whoever it is, first, before you can even think about the color or the style or the aesthetic, you know, that you actually have to craft in your head and experience and a journey. You know, what does that feel like? And if you start to design or you start to educate students about emotion or how something can make them feel as they go through a space and experience it, you know, and actually scripting that. When I walk into this space and I'm standing at the entrance, I feel like this. And that could be anything, because depending on what you're designing for, it has to be something. When I step into this part of the space, I need to feel this. You know, I feel like that whole part of the education process is maybe a little bit missing. I did take psychology as a minor in university, and I feel like that's why I feel this way. It's the thinking behind why we do certain things that makes design way more scientific for me than just about aesthetics. I really don't care for trends. I feel like even in our own work, we're very timeless. Yes, we're modern and contemporary, but still, like, you cannot actually tell. Some of my projects from 10 years ago could very well, and you do see them actually still in shopping malls today. So that timelessness has to be taught, because what I do feel is happening is that things are being dated too quickly, and students are forgetting that, you know, we actually do have an influence on how people are living their lives. You know, the health and welfare of people and their daily experience, that's all scripted by architects and designers. It is.
I'm leading towards a topic that I'm sure will spark some hunger in you, because another of your quotes are, you know, a Bible, in my opinion, for a lot of the designers, because you say meeting with contractors who understand your work and work towards the benefit of the project is a pleasure. When you meeting contractors that want to do only one thing, value engineering, how does it make you feel?
Well, I mean, anytime you put money to something, it devalues the whole emotional side of things, right? So we could spend months crafting an interior and really thinking about the experience, and then at the end of the day, you know, one guy, you know, sitting at the table makes that decision to eliminate something that's so actually crucial to the whole experience. It just kills it, right? So it's, I don't know, for me, I have actually come across people who, and this is why I know the difference, I have come across contractors who actually have said, but Carla, I understand your design. We have to keep this. You know, when you come across somebody who has literally looked at your design and knows, like, the crux of it, what's the important part, and will do anything to keep it, I mean, that's beautiful, right? And it actually does happen. And now I just keep those kind of people around me much closer. And I think at the end of the day, especially here, the common goal here is to create projects that have longevity, that are going to be really appreciated. And we are very lucky that we have good budgets in general. But yeah, you still come across every once in a while somebody who just doesn't get it. But they are fewer and farther between, let's say. So I do feel like I'm surrounding myself with the right people, maybe because of age. I don't know, and experience, I don't know.
Very interesting. And considering you are an artist, and in my personal opinion, you are a naturally born talent. I don't know, many people told you that, but, you know, listening to your story, you know, very good at maths and science, you know, from attempting to be a doctor to actually going to the creative industry. Very successful before the age of 30. Even more successful now, you are a businesswoman, and above all, you are a mother. So, which is another success that we haven't talked about, but I know you have a son, so it's, you know, it's probably the inspiration of the parents. I want to put a massive white canvas on top of the Burj Khalifa. What message would you write on that?
Wow. What message would I write on the Burj Khalifa? I really do think it's the be kind, you never know what's going on behind, you know, someone's closed doors. So I actually really do live by that be kind, first and foremost. Like even if somebody approaches you and they're having the worst day, I had a religion teacher once in high school where he was telling the story, and he said that someone on the way to work gave him the finger on the road, and he actually blew them a kiss.
Wow.
And it made that person laugh so hard. I'll never forget that story, because he chose. That's a decision. That's a choice. You know, if you choose to be kind, it's so powerful. I don't think kindness is a weakness at all. I think being kind is one of the most powerful things, because it actually takes a lot to let your guard down and to just show humility, and to get rid of ego. You know, that's another thing. Watch your ego. Maybe I should put that on the Burj Khalifa. Watch your ego.
You put a canvas behind.
Yeah, 2 canvases. Yeah.
So, you know, I see you as very successful, but what is the secret recipe of Carla and Brand Creative? Why people love working with you? What is the essence?
I think what I understand, because I do talk to my team a lot, is that they never feel like I'm a boss. There's none of that. I do actually let people, as artists, everybody has freedoms here in this company. If I've hired you because I believe in you. I don't hire people that I don't think are going to fit culturally, personality-wise. I just don't hire them. I can tell, you know, we'll do 1 or 2 interviews, and we have, you know, we've come across people that even in an interview, you could just tell they have the wrong ego. So anybody who ends up working here, we just know 100% that they're putting their best into it. And so I afford them the freedom to express themselves creatively. And I think people really appreciate that.
So the day that you will decide to enjoy life, you know, by not working, and you and your husband going remote places, and your son is grown up, mm-hmm. and I paint a nice picture because I don't want to sound tragic. Yeah. How would you like to be remembered? What's the legacy you want to leave?
As a person, I definitely want to be remembered as someone who was able to be really successful, because I'm still hungry. I don't want to come across as that, oh, I'm super, you know, that's all about the emotions, and I'm very friendly and kind, and I'm not hungry for success. I mean, you can't do this without hunger, right? So I like to win awards. I like to win projects. I like to be recognized by my peers and my colleagues for good work. I do want people to remember me by good work that looked different, good work that stood out from everybody else's style and aesthetic. And I do think that we do that. So Carla the designer, I would love to be remembered for my diversity. And then Carla the person, just someone who actually cared about people's balance in life. That's super important to me as well with my team, is that everybody feels balance. Everybody feels that, and it's not just a feeling, that I do actually care that they are healthy of mind and body, and that they're coming to work healthy of mind and body. And if you're not, let's talk so that I can help you. And that when you leave, it doesn't mean we have to be enemies. You know, in 10 years, I've had a lot of people come and go, and I have a lot of people who have remained friends. So, you know, you can work for me for a period of time and then leave and still be my friend. That's possible, actually.
On a positive note, the only thing I can say, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me. Thanks so much.